Part 3, getting back to decision-making capacity. Can the person make a decision? Can they communicate the decision? Is it consistent, or do the decisions change often? Do they understand the results or outcomes of the decision? These are all questions that must be answered before we can decide, can that person make their own decisions or not? Now, if a person is incapacitated and can't make their own decision, and nothing has been set up ahead of time, now we have a potential ethical dilemma. We have to look at who can make those decisions based on what's available. And we look at, ideally, you have a court-appointed guardian. A court-appointed guardian is responsible for that person in total. But that takes time. So that's not usually what will happen. So then we look at the durable power of attorney for healthcare, but if that one hasn't been set up, then we look on, it depends. Depends on the situation and institution. Who's available? Spouse? That's a good choice. Adult children of the person is a good choice. Parents of the person, another good choice. Now we go to siblings. Now we're going to have problems. Which sibling do you talk to? And what happens if siblings have a different opinion? This is why prior planning and prior decision making is so important to prevent problems like that from happening. And in the ER, when I was working in the ER, I saw stuff like that. And it's ugly. Maybe some of you have been part of it or observed it in your family. We want, as nurses, we want to encourage people to plan ahead and make those decisions in advance. Not planning that they will happen, but just understanding that things do happen. So when you ask that parent or spouse or sibling, how do they make those decisions? Well, they can use substituted judgment. And substituted judgment is making a choice based on what you think the person would do. If they were able, if they were capable, you use your judgment in substitution for theirs. Is it right? Correct? Maybe. Maybe not. Again, lack of planning sets us up for problems. Now, if the surrogate has no idea what the person wants, none whatsoever, then we would expect the person to do what's in their best interest. Not in the best interest of the surrogate or the family or to save money, but in the best interest of the patient. It's hard to do. Is there written evidence? Now again, in advance directives or living will, that's excellent. It's the person's statements, it's their voice, it's their thoughts on paper, observed, signed, witnessed. Could be other statements. Maybe they wrote a letter to their son saying, "Oh, I saw what happened to my dad, and I hope that never happens again. If something happens to me, I don't want anything done." That's a powerful statement. Okay, so those are pieces of evidence that can be used. Verbal evidence. Maybe they said one time, big family get together, and they just said out loud, I never want to have that tube stuck down my throat. I never want to have chest compressions. Well, that's helpful if that's known. Maybe if the patient who's now incapacitated once was in the position to make the same decision for another family member, you would follow their choice. If they decided to not put their parent on life support, maybe you would say, well, if they chose that for their parent, then they probably would do the same thing for themselves. Again, these are hints. They're not ironclad, cast iron wishes. You're using best judgment based on the evidence that's available. And it's not always good evidence. We want to maintain autonomy whenever possible. So, if your person is, if you're asking your patient's family member, there's two questions. What would you like us to do for your aunt? Or What do you think your aunt would have wanted done if she were able to speak for herself? It could generate two different answers. You want to make sure that the decision maker is always thinking about what the patient would have done. Not what I think should do for that person, but what do I think that person would have done. You could also tell the family members, now would be a very good time to call together the family so that everyone can get together and discuss what should be done. When you do that, you do run the risk of getting multiple opinions. But you also have the benefit of everybody knowing what's going on and everybody being on the same page. And even if there are multiple opinions, their opinions have been noted, rather than one person unilaterally making the decision without the other siblings even knowing what's going on. So the more voices you get, the more opinions you get, the better the outcome in terms of long-term satisfaction. I mean, satisfaction is not the right word, but the fewer the problems that could develop. The best interest standard, we always want to look at what's the best interest of the patient. Are we looking at physiological relief of suffering? Are we looking for restoration of function or satisfaction of desires? Probably not that. Surrogates are held to a higher standard. They're not allowed to make unusual, weird decisions, saying, we're not going to put the person on a ventilator, but we're going to lay these magic stones all around them and let the magic stones have their healing powers or whatever. That would be not an acceptable surrogate decision. I hope you are never involved personally in a situation like this. I hope as a professional you aren't involved. But if you work in the emergency room or intensive care unit, critical care unit, even a med-surg unit, you may be at some point professionally involved with something like this. Planning ahead is always going to help you. That's the end of part 3.